So, are you in a relationship or even a situationship with a dismissive avoidant attachment style and feel like things are just not really on track? Maybe you feel like the spark is kind of fading, you're seeing each other less, you're communicating and texting a little bit less often, and you're really wondering how can you rekindle the spark? Well, in this video, I am going to cover exactly how to do that with 5 key steps to rekindle the spark with a dismissive avoidant attachment style. And by the way, if you're not familiar with what a dismissive avoidant attachment style is, it's one of 4 main attachment styles. Everybody has an attachment style, AKA love style, in a relationship. And essentially, dismissive avoidants tend to be the ones in relationships that are withdrawn, they're afraid of commitment, they can be slower to warm up. And it's because they definitely have neglect wounds from childhood where deep emotional connection wasn't really there. And so they have this longstanding history of not really feeling that type of connection was modeled to them. And it can lead them to be a little bit hesitant to try to incorporate that kind of connection in their adult romantic relationships because it feels like an unknown. So, without further ado, the 5 major components of rekindling the spark with a dismissive avoidant attachment style are number one, some kind of lightness and ease. Okay. No, I don't just mean like being light and easy in your text messages and just sort of keeping things at a high level. But if things are falling off course, one of the things that will actually create a deactivation for dismissive avoidance first and fastest is if things go from being, you know, sort of on the rocks to somebody pushing too hard and too fast to create deeper connection. So think of it this way. If you're finding that things are just not going so well, start with just keeping things at a high level, but adding in more consistency. So keep things light, keep things simple, keep things easy. And what you're actually doing here in this step is you're building rapport. You're meeting somebody where they are at. And it's actually a really important skill of empathy to be able to meet somebody where they are at because sometimes we just want people to be where we are and on the same page as we are and the level we are. So we have this thing that we can do where we subconsciously project ourselves onto another person. We're like, well, I want to be deeply committed. So they should want to be deeply committed. And we try to push for that without actually considering where that person currently is. And sometimes what we have to do to get somebody on the same page as us is first just return to their page and bring them along with us. And so it's really valuable to start off with a little bit of lightness, ease, and then build consistency around that for 1 to 2 weeks as you just re engage that connection with a DA. The second really big thing to add in here, if you're trying to get things back on track and rekindle that spark, is acknowledgement and appreciation. Now, I want to be really clear here. Dismissive avoidants do not respond to acknowledgement and appreciation when it seems superficial or exaggerated. They tend to respond to things like, hey, I noticed XYZ about you, like these small things, like things you notice, things you appreciate. You see that they're trying to be more consistent in the relationship. You appreciate them for showing up. The little things that you can acknowledge, those things that seem very sincere in terms of what you actually appreciate. If you try to say things like, oh, you're the best ever in the world, or um, nobody's as good as you at XYZ, like if you have these really magnified compliments, DAs will feel like it's superficial and overwhelming, and they'll tend to withdraw from things like that. So you really want to give small, consistent pieces of sincere acknowledgement and appreciation for things that are real, things that you actually can find appreciation in within the relationship. And it helps dismissive avoidants feel seen and also feel encouraged, like they can do relationships in a healthy way. Because believe it or not, and I can tell you this from working with so many people in my practice over the years, believe it or not, what actually ends up happening is so many dismissive avoidants, they feel incapable of really doing relationships. And so they won't try to do things or try to put themselves out there because it feels too vulnerable. And so knowing that they can do those things tends to actually really positively reinforce them to be able to show up more effectively and more consistently. Now, number 3, if you pair the lightness and the ease and consistency with the acknowledgement, and then you sprinkle in a little bit of humor, sharing funny memes or little funny jokes or funny videos or just things at a high level that bring out that humor, it actually helps a dismissive avoidant to feel really relaxed and connected. And it's something that they tend to respond very positively to. Because again, it's like more of these indirect ways of connecting, sharing things that you both find amusing or funny or interesting or um, things that you can acknowledge, like all of these things tied together will help get things off the rocks and just into a more positive space overall. Now, By the way, if you want to do a much deeper dive into this, and if you're like, hey, Thais, this isn't just about rekindling the spark for me. I'm actually in a relationship or a situationship where like things are so far off track. We're really struggling. For the month of May only, we are doing a 14-day free trial to PDS, which means you actually get access to all of the courses for 14 days for free. You can check them out. You can download the workbooks. You can go in, you can take the courses. I mean, you can literally get through like each course, and PDS is maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's designed to address root cause, the subconscious component of what's going on, and really help you move the needle. And so for Mental Health Month, we do a 14-day free trial once a year for this, for Mental Health Month. And it will allow you to really do a deep dive into accessing some of the things that may be helpful for you. So if you're seeing some of these patterns and want to do a much deeper dive, the course I recommend for you is How to Repair Any Relationship. Again, I'll put the link down below. You can check it out for 14 days for free. But back to just this idea of like rekindling the spark in the relationship with a DA. Number 4 here is you want to have an absence of pressure, but you want to have more time with one another. So you want to have things where it's like, um, some things that I find can really make a relationship go off track with the DA because they're so sensitive to criticism and they won't ever show it. So you probably won't know it. But is when they feel like they are being told what they're not doing rather than what you'd like to do with them. So DAs are much more likely to respond to communication that says, actually, let me just show you the difference. Let's say that I say to a DA, you never spend enough time with me. You never make time for me. I'm sick of it. Okay. Which is how a lot of people communicate. Versus if I say, hey, I really miss spending time with you. Let's do a really fun date night on Saturday and let's specifically do XYZ. Like the absence of pressure, it's not about what you didn't do. It's not about how you're not doing enough or not good enough. Instead, I'm really communicating about like a fun idea in the present or near future that I really want to incorporate. And there's a lightness, there's a sense of fun about that, a sense of like excitement or something to look forward to, rather than, hey, you never XYZ, you don't bother. Something I'm like really telling you and communicating about negatively or retroactively, right? So the difference between proactive communication and reactive communication is huge. It sounds like a small thing. It goes a very, 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 very long way in relationships. So that absence of pressure in how you communicate and really making sure you communicate in that proactive format, massive. And number 5, moving towards being more supportive of each other in a harmonious way. So dismissive avoidants, they generally have a pretty strong love language around acts of service, which for them feels like supportiveness. If somebody's doing acts of service, it feels like they're being supported, seen, cared for, understood, all these things that are really important for dismissive avoidance in terms of connection. So doing that in that form, but making sure that you are also expressing your needs as well, because we have to acknowledge that if a relationship has fallen off track and a spark is not really in a great space, it's probably because there's two people in the relationship that are accidentally contributing to that. So making sure as well with a DA, you are also communicating what your needs are to feel supported, making them small, simple, chunked down, easy to understand, and then giving those needs as well through acts of service, through care, through supportiveness to create more of that harmony in relationships is huge. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this makes a whole lot of sense. If you want to learn more about attachment styles, your subconscious mind, boundaries, reconditioning the subconscious mind as a whole to heal core wounds or limiting beliefs we have, and so many other things, please subscribe to this channel. I put literally daily content out every single day, everything about attachment styles, personal growth, healing. And if you don't want to miss any, subscribe down below and hit the notification bell. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow.